Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I would just start by reinforcing the fact that it will be very important for us for you to register for the event with the link you have back there. And I'll start by presenting myself. So my name is Miguel Burgueta. I'm a program coordinator here at Google for Startup Spain, and I'm here to introduce you one of our global live session series. As some of you may know, we are currently recruiting an amazing panel of mentors from our global campus communities to offer remote talks like this during these unexpected and challenging days. I would also like to invite all of you to check out our YouTube channel, as we have new content and opportunities very frequently. And without further delay, let me introduce you our special guest today, Alberto Romero. Alberto has been working with digital projects for the last 15 years, including 7 years as a design director at Designite, which is a global firm from Copenhagen, where he had the opportunity to lead the offices in Madrid and New York. Last year, Alberto has worked as a venture architect at 7R Ventures, and he is now an independent product strategy consultant. We are very, very lucky to have him today with us to talk about how to implement a design-led approach to product strategy. I would also like to invite all of you to drop your questions at the chat below, as we'll be curating them, and we'll have time for Alberto to answer all of them in the end of the session. So Alberto, I would like to invite you to present yourself and share your slides. I think that will be a very, very interesting session for a lot of people that is watching us, and the screen is yours.
All right, thanks, Miguel. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, I think we're ready. So let's get started. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining the streaming. It's my first time doing one of these, so I hope everything works out well. And I also hope you are and your families are safe and healthy. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Alberto Romero. I am a designer. I have a background in interaction and strategic design. And I've been creating digital products and services since 2003. In the past few years, I have been able to see how design can help product strategy. Almost 10 years ago, I co-founded an e-commerce startup called Toldo, where I was designer, front-end developer, basically a lot of things, main decision maker when it came to product and business. Then at Designit, a strategic design firm, as Miguel said, where I was a design director, first here in Madrid and then in Brooklyn, New York. And we were helping large companies innovate on their digital transformation journeys. More recently at 7R Ventures, it's a corporate venture builder. I helped shape new businesses from scratch along with corporate partners. I'm currently working independently, helping projects that need design direction or product strategy as a freelance. So today's session is mainly going to be about how design can help your product strategy. Now, why I think this is relevant, other than because I tend to look at things from through the lens of design. Well, this is the design ladder that was developed by the Danish Design Center back in 2001 as a communicative model for illustrating the variation in companies' use of design. So they use these 4 buckets to qualify companies in their use of design, from non-design on a stage 1, to design as form giving in a stage 2, design as process, or design as strategy. And they use this to qualify companies and see how they perform. And according to their studies, companies that work systematically with design have higher earnings and bigger exports than companies that did not use design. And I'm sure you've read some recent studies that they came to the same conclusion. So the talk will mainly be targeted at founders, product people who maybe aren't designers, but are curious about the answer to this question. How can design help your product strategy? And I'm going to try to answer that through 3 layers. Product as realization of the company strategy, products as a tangibilization of the value proposition, and product roadmaps as strategy prototypes. Let's get started. Okay, so first, products as realization of the company strategy. Let's first look at what successful strategy looks like. On his famous TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, Simon Sinek explains how some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire. He says that most companies and individuals communicate by focusing on the what, for example, the product features, then move up into the how, so how it works, how it adds value, and lastly, mention why it matters and why you should buy it. But Sinek says that organizations and leaders that succeed inspiring others, do it by starting on the why. They first tell you why they exist, then and what they do, then they focus on the value proposition, and finally land on a product or a feature. Sinek gives the classic example of Apple, which is an example that everybody gets. They say things like, we think different. We are at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. We want to empower the creative. Okay, we agree with that. And then they say, we are reinventing the phone or 1,000 songs in your pocket. And then lastly, here, the iPhone or the iPod. And what makes more sense to me is that by focusing on the why, you are engaging with people who believe what you believe. So talk to customers that believe what you believe. Now, as founders, sometimes we start with an idea, with a problem that we had, or with a specific technology solution, and may find it difficult to zoom out and see the bigger picture. One way I find useful when figuring out a way to ask ourselves the why is asking ourselves the following question. What change are we willing to see in our customers? If we are able to answer this question, probably everything we ship will get them a little closer to this new state that is hopefully better than their current one. So what does this have to do with design? How can design help the direction of a product realize this company strategy? Well, the truth is that in my experience, the companies whose products better align with their values and those companies where the vision is shared are those companies where the vision is shared more often and more clearly throughout the teams. If you've ever worked with a large company, you realize that sometimes they would be better off without an innovation department or a UX department, and would perform better if they had a user-centered culture. So what about this conversation? How do they happen? Well, it turns out designers and design-oriented product people are used to being very well positioned for this, because they are the glue between the company strategy and different teams, business, marketing, technology. So if you are on product or on design, I'm sure you have had to deal with business requests, different points of view from tech teams, or different demands from marketing, who of course claim to know their users. So we are very well armed to carry out these conversations. So if they are not happening, I encourage you to facilitate a working session that has the founders, that has design people, that has development or sales leads. You can start by aligning on why is the company here. What change do we want to see in our customers? Discuss how you would like your customers again to change. Have some ideas around how each one of you can make that happen, and maybe revisit the goals that you have set yourselves for the next quarter or the next year and see how they change. A couple of hours, I think, of these type of conversations go a long way aligning teams, and I think they should happen regularly. All right, next, products as the tangibilization, as the vehicle for the value proposition. We've talked about why we do what we do. Let's now move on to how we deliver this to the customer. Now, if you think about value proposition, probably this image comes to your mind. Maybe you're familiar with this. It's the value proposition canvas. This is a tool by the people at Strategizer, Alexander Osterwalder. They are the creators of the business model canvas. And it provides a structure to analyze your customers' pains and gains on the right, and then list product qualities or features as pain relievers or gain creators on the left. I personally find it a bit confusing when collaborating with people, and I am more comfortable with this other one that's more simple. This is a formula suggested by Jeffrey Moore on his book, Crossing the Chasm. It provides a structure to synthesize how we deliver value. I find it really helpful as a collaboration tool because it is not sophisticated. It is very prosaic, but it's very effective. As it should be, it starts with the customer. Who is our target customer? In what scenario are we willing to enrich their lives? It continues with the product. What are we selling? Is it a software as a service? Is it a payment system? What problem does it solve? What value does it provide? And then it helps us think about positioning and differentiation. What are we competing against? How are we better? And so when I have used this, I usually listed here several competitors, especially if you are in a crowded market, this is useful. As always, there are simpler alternatives, and I think this one would be the minimum viable value proposition. Just ask yourself, who is it for? What is it for? I think you will all agree with me that you definitely need to be able to answer these couple of questions with confidence about your product. So again, how does design help bring these value propositions to life? I think aside from many skills, such as the ability to synthesize or methods for strategic foresight, I think the practice that's more relevant and practical here is design research. Because design research provides us with tools and methods to dive into our customers' world in quantitative and qualitative ways. And here are 3 ways that I find easy and useful to learn about your audience. The first one is a simple, good old chat. In-depth interviews allows us to understand their worldview, how they see their world, what worries them, what motivates them, how we can influence them. It's very good, I think, if it's your first time talking to customers at the beginning of a piece of work, or maybe when you are launching new stuff for a new customer segment, just having an in-depth interview with them. The next one is more tactical, and it's more about observing, shadowing combined with contextual interviews or contextual interviews. They are useful to map the needs and pains in the current experience, but also to grasp mental models. I'm talking about sitting down to observe a person as they are going on with the tasks that are relevant to the product. So, for instance, if your product is a recipe book, you may want to observe people as they cook or as they follow classic recipe books. It's useful also to see how you can outperform the competition if they are using different products than yours, and very useful in products that target professionals, because it's like we can look through a spy hole and see how people work. A bit more ambitious are diary studies, but this is a technique in which participants tell you, record, or send you information in real time or record it and you gather it afterwards as they go through different situations. For instance, you could have a group of people sign up to your online service and follow their experience. This could be very interesting, for instance, if you are redesigning the onboarding to your service. And the last is a very simple concept testing. Testing designs to validate our value proposition and see how it performs. Give your product to the person, have them using it, shut up, and observe where they get stuck or how they interact with it. Then afterwards, you can have a follow-up interview and see for them to tell you how they felt or to share some thoughts. You can do this with early on concepts. So talk to your customers. In classic organizations, only sales used to talk to their customers. In more evolved ones, of course, product managers talk to them on a regular basis. And I think in addition to this, in companies that have design as a strategic asset, design-driven organizations, and I'm talking about startups like Shopify in Canada, Cabify here in Spain, or public organizations such as Gov.uk, they either have dedicated design researchers or other startups that maybe don't have the size. I'm thinking On Track here in Spain, who has a very good product process. They have designers directly talking to customers. So find some time to talk to your customers. All right, 3. Now, let's talk about product roadmaps as strategy prototypes. We understood why we do what we do. We gave some shape to how we want to deliver value to the customers. And now it's time to figure out what to build. Which of these changes we need to enable? Of course, tied to business strategy. So when you think about planning what to build, usually something like this comes to mind. A roadmap is a timeline roadmap. It's basically a chart with time on the x-axis and timeline, and then things to do on the y-axis. The problem with this kind of roadmaps is that the farther out that this timeline stretches, the more we are really making things up, and because we are making a lot of assumptions. We are assuming how long each feature is going to take or how well each thing that we ship is going to perform. We are assuming that we are not getting any new information, that nothing new or more urgent will come in. We don't know how the market will react X weeks or X months ahead. So I would like to talk about something that I've been using for a few years now. But I recently, I think last year, saw Jana Barstow from PropPad articulate and describe better than I could possibly do. And she calls it lean road mapping. I've been calling it like goal-oriented road mapping. But anyway, Jana Barstow, you should follow her on Twitter if you are onto product. So the way she describes the process is the first step we need to take is, of course, after knowing why we do things and how we want to deliver the value, is to think of outcomes instead of outputs. And so, for instance, instead of thinking about your sign up process, implementing a sign up process on the mobile app, think about, okay, we need to get users to be able to sign up from their mobile phones. Or instead of directly thinking about showing cross-selling options on the product page, talk about getting 50% more revenue per customer. And I think this leaves more room for execution teams, design, technologists, to use their creativity when we are in execution phase. So probably your company strategic plan for the year or for the next quarter looks something like this, with different objectives buckets. We're just going to use the first three ones as our example. And maybe each one of them has several other sub goals, but let's stick with this for simplicity. So the idea here is trying to figure out how your product might help in each one of those areas and list specific outcomes you think you might achieve. I'm sure this will resonate with you if you're already using OKRs to manage your startup. And at the end, we will have a list of desired outcomes that are tied to different objectives of the company strategy. Then, instead of creating a weekly or a monthly timeline, create some buckets, maybe 3 buckets, and Jana calls them time horizons, and put these desired outcomes on those 3 buckets. The first bucket would be for the current things or the very, very short terms, the immediate things that have a specific scope, maybe even some design specs. The next one would be for the short term or the near term with larger areas of focus or things with more flexible outcome. And then we would have like a future bucket, things that we still haven't figured out. We're not even sure what will work or won't. So again, we place the outcomes listed under each time horizon. And as we learn more about how we can tackle each outcome, we can bring them to the current box. So doing things in this way, combining the vision, combining your objectives and the time horizons, enables us to articulate a product strategy in a new way. So how does design help in this way of organizing product building? Well, as we saw in our example, there are some desired outcomes for the near term or future term that still have a lot of uncertainty around. So, for instance, maybe we don't know the scope, or we don't even know what something would look like. And design is very good at experimenting. It's coming up with different ideas and prototyping them quickly. So different people in the organization can look at the same thing and see how something might work. These experiments are also the best way to bring something early to the customer and remove uncertainty from the initiatives that we still lack data about. So here's a real example. I came across this like a couple of years ago, and I decided to take a screenshot of it because I liked it very much. At the company I used to work for, we were using Dropbox, and one day I saw this. It was like a landing page about a new design tool from Dropbox. So it had a bit of the description of the value proposition. If you can dream it, this tool can create it. Spend your time where it matters. Tailor your design workflow to work for you. And at the end, it even had a price and a call to action to get on board. Please note that this call to action said, get notified. Well, actually, once I clicked on it, it took me to a survey where they asked me about things like what I would use the tool for or the size of my team. So Dropbox, what they did, they with a little effort, they were able to test how much appetite there was for this tool that actually never shipped, as you probably know. So these experiments are easy. Sometimes you just need to create a mock UI with a call to action and a form to gather some data. And you can save a lot of resources or just get information that will help you prioritize things on your product strategy. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. Let's review what we saw today. We talked about aligning on why we do things, and I am sure product and design folks are the best equipped to facilitate that alignment. We talked about defining how we deliver value and a few ways to gather input from our customers. And we also talked about a different way to figure out what to build next and how design can help through experiments. Um, I think that's all. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Here are a couple of ways that you can reach out to me. Please do. And let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Alberto. Very, very, very interesting session. We have a lot of people watching, and we have already a couple of questions for you. So the first one from Stefan Post would be, in what way do you understand design and the role of prototyping in design?
Wow, that's a big
Yeah,
one
that's
to
a
start
complex
with.
one. Yeah.
In what way do I understand design and the way to prototype with design?
Yeah, the role of prototyping in design. So what would be the
Okay,
role that
so I think
prototyping would be?
yeah, I mean designers constantly work by doing something that we call zooming in and out. Start with an idea, work on it with pen and paper, with different materials. If you are a product designer or an architect, and figure out some more granular level of details until you hit a wall, and then you have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and think again, okay, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to solve? And then you can maybe zoom in again. So definitely, prototyping is a key asset or a key part of the process of design that, as design has become more popular through design thinking and other people are using design tools to solve problems that until recently were not within the design domain, prototyping has become an asset. And I just gave an example of prototyping as a business development tool, as a lead generation tool, as a validation tool.
Yeah, that was a very good example from Dropbox. And a next question would be, which design methods do you utilize in exploration of product solution experience as opposed to mere exploration of product solution itself?
Hmm. I'm not sure I really
I believe that,
understand the question, but when I'm exploring different solutions, the best tool I've found, and I think there's a piece in one of the books of the guys by Basecamp, Jason Fried and DHH. I think it's the one they first released. The tool I use the most is a marker and a pen. And I was remembering that the guys at Basecamp described it very well. They said, get the thickest marker you can get, because when you are exploring different possibilities for an experience, you don't want to get into the nitty gritty details. You waste a lot of time. So it's better to broaden the scope of the solutions with little details. So grab the marker, the thickest marker that you have, and then once you find a path that you think you might work, you can grab the pencil and add more details to that.
I think here what Stefan was also mentioning is the fact, is the difference between the product solution and the experience you get out of that. So the experience you get from what this product is solving, and the product solution itself, which I believe that can differ, right? So the experience that people get from this product solution.
Yes, but I think, I mean, we call ourselves, UX designers, experience designers. I think it's very hard to believe that there's such a thing as designing an experience, right? Because at the end of the day, each one is gonna experience stuff in a different way. But what I think I could add is that I believe the experience um, you are trying to provoke in the users of the products that you create should be aligned with the problem, with the solution that you are trying to put out there. So, for instance, it wouldn't make more sense, and I'm probably exaggerating here, to create a playful experience for a medical device, right? And so I think that is very important. And that's why the conversations I was talking about in the first chapter to, about why we do what we do, what is the value that we want to put out there, and having the executioners of that product in the conversation is that's why I believe it's key.
Okay, and we have an interesting question from Adrian Salcedo. How can we switch the mindset from market research to design research at big organizations? So now we move from small companies to the big ones.
Right. That is a very good question. I am not a research specialist, but I think a good way to make that switch is to think about the difference between thinking about your customers as numbers, in a spreadsheet, and talking to our customer face to face, bone and flesh, and connecting with emotions, no, and with real problems. So there's always a battle that I have seen when designers use an empathy and alignment and collaboration tool that we call design personas. When we use this tool with marketing people, uh, we have this conversation always around, okay, this persona, this customer, they cannot have 2.5 kids. He cannot have 30 to 40 years. No, this is a persona, this is an archetype that has a name, has an age, and has either one kid or two kids, but they cannot have 1.5, right? So that would be the
The
probably
change of
the
mindset.
the change of mindset. Yeah.
Okay, next question. How much care for GDPR is taken into account in the questionnaires or feedback from potential customers? I believe we have a very important and legal concern, because you mentioned all of these options of interacting with customers and trying products that are not
Yes.
yet developed, try to get information from them. How can this new GDPR regulation impact that?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very very interesting question. Also very technical. I am not an expert myself, but research practitioners have all adopted the GDPR without a problem with things like, of course, asking for consent, informing the participant of the objective or the use of the information they are giving away, providing ways to access the rights to check or access or delete, remove the data that we store about them, and some other legal implications that I think exist, such as your obligation to keep the data on record for 1 year before you destroy it and stuff like that.
Okay, so you would basically follow pretty much the GDPR regulation and keep
Oh
checking
yeah,
checking your
yeah,
customers and
and there's a lot of content online about that. I think if you Google GDPR design research, you're gonna find lots of resources, listicles, and do's and don'ts.
great. We have another question from Mario Vallejo, and it's a more operational one. So, do you use some specific software to manage product strategy?
Sure. I've used different things in the past. I have used, I've used, Trello. I've used Google Sheets, and I gotta say that, and it's the second time I mentioned this, that for the company I'm helping now is a financial product that we are digitizing. We are using Basecamp. I hadn't used the version 3, the current version, and I gotta say that I am liking it a lot. It gives me uh, peace and calm, and it's less around creating a lot of tickets and moving them from column to column and live chat and slacking, and more about having conversations and planning things out and just working.
So summarizing, Alberto, that could be a place where you have all the team involved. You also have the main objectives, so that
Oh
essentially
yeah,
company strategy, the goals you have for the year, and then you drop down in tasks and key R's that are essential to move forward.
exactly.
Okay. And one last question from Inês Rosado. You have talked about different strategies of research. Which one would you recommend in every moment of the process? So, would you change the type of research
Yes,
according to
yes,
each part
absolutely.
of the process?
Yes, absolutely. I think I've talked about maybe three moments here, about when you are first learning about your customers. And, over there, I think it's just with an interview. I would encourage face-to-face interviews when possible, one-on-one. Then, as you are maybe trying to solve parts of the experience, something where you can observe more and see how they do the things they do, or see them in their world or in their context. Um, so that, such as I mentioned, shadowing or um, contextual interviews or contextual observation. And then once you have something to show, of course, some testing. Of course, there are many more methods. I think if what you are designing is less tangible and is maybe it's a service with different touch points, or touch points that are not a digital UI, you can do how do you call it? Uh, just scenario playing, role playing. Um, you can use some quantitative methods. I mentioned some online questionnaires, but that on a larger scale. Um, yeah.
Okay. I think there's one. I mean, there's many takeaways, but there's definitely one that relates with all of these questions. With these, which is basically why and for what are you building these? Which in the end, it's at the top level of product strategy, right? If you understand exactly why you are creating your product and who will be the users and why, what are you solving, then you can drive that from engaging all teams from finance to product to design to marketing, and that's the only way to actually deliver that product. uh, we don't have more questions. I don't know if anyone else is still we still have a couple of minutes, so if everyone wants to post new questions, I think Alberto has a couple more minutes. If not, I would just like to I would wait a minute, but I can start by thanking you very much for being with us today. We had a very interesting and big audience. I hope from all over Europe at least. We shared with our global communities, our more than our 7 campuses around the world. So we'll probably have people from all of these communities joining. So thank you very much, Alberto. I don't know if you have any last words. I'll pass the word to you.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody who joined.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching, for being with us in this morning. And since we have no questions, I think that we can end the session. Thank you very much and have a nice day.